And we're live. Here we are. We are on the World Wide Web. What are we on? We're on YouTube, on Twitch, of course, our home, and both my Facebook pages. So we're out there. Here we are, and we're out there. This is Steve Moore, Kyle Hogg. I'm your host, Nathan Moore. I'll be following the chats on our Discord server here. Anywhere you are watching, I will see your chats here, so feel free to ask a question, interact with us. Oh, we got somebody's on Twitch already. Hey, Twitch, I hear you applauding over there. Wonderful. Well, welcome back, guys.
Well, it's nice to be back.
So you were telling a story about your new culinary escapades.
My latest escapade in the kitchen. I involved that Hawaiian bread.
I love that Hawaiian. You know what he's talking about? The Hawaiian bread?
The first thing is I wanted somebody to tell me why it tastes so good, and obviously the answer is sugar.
Mm-hmm. But the texture is perfect, too.
But there's something about it that makes a sandwich taste completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm more excited about the day after Thanksgiving because of Hawaiian rolls. Whether it's ham or turkey or what, you stick that.
Ham biscuits with those Hawaiian rolls. And the Hawaiian rolls make it. It's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I did the other night. I just felt crazy in the grocery store, and I do that a lot.
Everybody feels crazy in the grocery store. Just so you know.
It's the only place I go anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Here and the Food Line are where I go. So I bought one of those big old things of Hawaiian bread. Now, I bought them at Thanksgiving or something, but for a special occasion, but I never just bought them. So there they were, and it's big, and I can't eat all that bread. Plus, I had a whole nother loaf of bread, so I felt overbreaded. But here's what I did. I wanted hot dogs. Ball game on, a couple hot dogs. So I put Nathan's hot dogs.
I was going to ask.
2 Nathan's hot dogs, not the long ones, just the chubby ones. And I put them in some olive oil, and I chopped up an onion, just like my dad would do, and put those onions in there. And then I put a top on it, and I watched it, and it started cooking, and they got nice and brown. But in the meanwhile, I took those little two of those Hawaiian rolls.
Oh, you left them attached.
Grabbed them attached, about 2, and then cut it down the middle, and then took that fork and took the hot dog, and then I took some onions, and then I put some mustard, and I also did something else crazy the other day. I got some of that hot dog, the green. It's not chili, it's...
Relish?
Relish? Relish. That's the word I was looking for. Good job. I got relish. I hadn't had relish in years. So I had all that loaded up, and I put that hot dog down in there and crushed that over and took a bite, and it was probably the best thing I've ever.
That sounds amazing.
It was.
You left it on there whole? You didn't slice the hot dog or anything?
No, but what I'm going to do when I have my little restaurant is I'm going to cut it right down the middle, and there'll be 2 halves.
Sliders.
So they're slider hot dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do one more slice, and I'll have 4 bites. I might do biters.
Biters.
Steve's
biters.
Steve's bites.
Yeah.
Just like fishing, you get a bite.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. But it was the combination of that Hawaiian bread and the Nathan hot dog and the onion. And you can't leave the mustard out. The mustard's important too.
Mm-hmm.
It's all integrated into the most amazing gustatorial experience I ever had in my whole life.
I like a raw onions on my hot dog. I like them grilled too. I sort of like them both, but I like that crunch.
I agree with you. I like to chew them up. Of course, I don't have any teeth, so it's harder.
Right.
But it just takes longer. But I agree. I don't really cook the onions too long. I just put them in there and let them get heated, so they still still have a little bite to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I agree with you. I like to have
There
my.
you go.
Do chefs refer to things having a tooth? Is that
What?
the tooth of the bite? I'm out on a limb here. I just feel like it's calling it a chef term, something to do with the teeth. But I was thinking about it. Was the softness of the bread allows you to hit that dog in the middle. It's like a good hamburger bun, to where I feel like tooth is the word I'm looking for, but now I'm really lost in this thought. But if it's the wrong bun, you don't really feel the texture of the burger. You don't hit the burger. A nice soft bun allows you to get.
Well, I will say that it was better than a bun. These two,
Oh yeah.
the way they were wrapped around the hot dog,
Mm-hmm.
they were even better than a hot dog bun.
Wow.
I don't like hot dog buns because I always end up throwing two out,
Mm.
or they get hard and I throw them
Right,
to the
they don't do
birds.
the math right.
Yeah, it's not.
There's not the same number of hot dog
It used
buns.
to be 8 and 10 or
Right,
something like
right.
that. But I don't know what it is now.
I think there's a reason for that, like the way that in the old days the way the pans were made or something. Like they have 8, like the hot dog bun pan has 8, so they just put those 8 in a bag. I don't know why they couldn't make hot dogs out of 8. But there is some reason for it.
Something weird going on there. I always wondered about that math. 2 different companies couldn't communicate on this.
Have y'all ever had Sam's hot dogs? There's
It's been a
out-
long time.
I haven't had any.
Do you recommend those?
Yeah, there's one near where I work. It's really good.
You do that for lunch?
Yeah.
What's
loaded with mild chili? Oh my God, it's good.
Oh man, what's their claim to fame? What's their
Well, I think
signature move?
I think every hot dog in every town supposedly it's like coffee, the best hot dog in town. Yeah.
You know, I have put chili on a hot dog, but I think as soon as you put chili on a hot dog, you've got something else. You don't
It's
have
something else.
You don't have a
It
hot
can
dog.
be delicious, but if you're in the
mean,
mood
I'm
for a
not
hot
saying-
dog, you don't want one of these.
Exactly.
But it can be
You have
delicious.
something else called
I'm not
diarrhea.
saying they're bad. I'm just saying it's not a hot dog.
It's like weird toppings on a pizza. It's like barbecue chicken on a pizza. It's like, okay, it might be good if I can talk myself out. If I don't go into it thinking pizza, it's probably delicious. If I'm thinking pizza, this is not going to be any good.
That's a good analogy, I think.
Now, how about a hamburger? You like that plain ketchup mustard? Or you like lettuce and tomato, onion, and all that
Oh, I
stuff?
can load it up lots of different ways. I like lettuce, tomato, mayonnaise, and mustard. You know, I like to start with mustard and onions, and then anything else is fair game.
So if you had to choose between mustard and ketchup, you'd choose mustard?
Well, it depends. For a hot dog, for a hamburger or a hot dog, yes.
I don't know what I think of that.
But for French fries, I like ketchup. Now, we have a thing going on here pretty soon. My eldest granddaughter, who's Evangeline, who we call Eva, is turning 8 years old, or she already has. She's 8 today. Today.
Happy birthday, Eva!
Eva!
Way to go.
I hope you're out there. Now, they might not be out there at the moment, but she can watch it later.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
they might be out there right now. If they are, then you've got Zelly. Say
Hey, Zelly.
Zelly. And Lucia.
Lucia,
Yeah.
And Samuel.
Sam.
And Jocelyn.
We were just talking about your hot dogs, Sam. Kudos.
And Daniel.
Daniel.
So we got everybody there. And Jobo and Elliot and Hunter might be watching. too.
Awesome. It's a
Wow.
family affair.
But I did make a commitment that you would give Eva a great birthday present in the form of a magic trick.
Boy, that's a lot of pressure.
I know, and I didn't ask you before I did it, but that's what
You know you didn't.
That's the kind of thing fathers do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've done that
put 'em
to
on the
you all my
spot.
life. Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, he'll do it. Yeah, come on up.
It's to pay you back for all those nights you came to him and said, "I have a project due tomorrow. We need this, and this." Oh, we gotta go to Walmart then. Come on.
Well, I've changed a few diapers, and he never, you know, like, there's payback.
I made a pretty good, just back to the food thing still on my mind, because I made a pretty good potato salad right before y'all got here. If you guys are
Now,
hungry after the show, or take some home with you, I made a lot of
I'd
potato
like
salad.
to taste it. Yeah, definitely.
The trick to a potato salad out there, if you're watching, is it's a tough thing, because you cut up the potatoes, you're boiling them in the water, and the second they are fork tender, the second you have to shock them with cold water to stop the cooking process immediately, or it'll just become mashed potatoes as you're stirring in everything. So that's the main trick, and I've either been like a minute shy or a minute too long. Either way, it's tough, because if you're a minute short, then they're crunchy. You don't want that in your potato salad. If you go too long, they're mushy. I've maybe nailed it. It was really close to perfect this time. My grandmother used to make them. I used to always marvel at that. How do you get it just right?
Do you use mayo or mustard?
Both.
Okay.
I use mayo, mustard, raw onion, relish, celery seed, and some tarragon, just to make it my own. But there's a whole bunch of it up there if you guys would like to take some
Sounds
home, or if you
good.
need some afterwards.
Yeah, I'm kind of hungry for it right now.
Get that bowl of potato salad. Lapel mics love the sound of eating. I've had to get better at crunching my ice when I'm streaming. I have a bad habit of crunching ice. And these lapel mics, it's a sound. It's a whole thing. I'm procrastinating the magic trick, by the way. We could, if you want to talk about anything.
For some reason, I don't know why, when we
Oh.
started tonight, for some reason it reminded me of the dating game. Like
There's three of us.
Like if Catherine couldn't
And
see who
Cather's
we
on the other
were,
side of the
and we're just
wall,
sitting
our
there
producer.
we're just asking each other questions, and then she would get a chance to ask questions.
You want to? All right, let's play around with that. All right, Bachelor number 1, Bachelor number 2, Bachelor number 3.
We know she's gonna pick you. We don't have a chance.
She can't see us. She doesn't know. We'll disguise our voices. I see some good action here in the chats. Hey Ben, welcome to the show. Eric, what's happening? Stephen Fisher.
Hey, Eric,
Did you ever,
good to see you.
Go
did you
ahead.
ever hear about the guy on the dating game was one of the serial killers?
Yeah. Which one was that?
Oh my God, I can't remember now. But he asked that girl. He would actually no. I think she canceled the date with him. She was scared of him and canceled the date. Did you ever hear about that?
No,
You remember the dating game?
I remember
They
it. Yeah.
set, and one of the guys was an actual. He had already killed some people, I think, hadn't he? And he was on the
think
show.
so.
Continued killing after that.
Really?
Yeah.
It's funny how many celebrities
Oh, yeah.
appeared on the dating game before they were anybody.
Yeah.
It just really makes you
Wonder how they
curious.
how that happened. Where
It's
did
the
they-
whole LA scene, you know, if you're
Ah.
just an aspiring actor, whatever you're doing, auditions to get on anything you can. Little
Gotcha.
spot on the show. Squanjo! Nice. Happy birthday, Squumpkin. It's good to see everybody. Deucey, hello. Magpie, great to see everybody. April, welcome to the show.
Was Eva born at 7:15?
Excuse me?
Was Eva born at 7:15?
No, that's just when I thought we could do the show.
I was gonna say.
That's
well,
when I
let's
put the
magic-
responsibility of on Nathan to do a trick.
Bachelor number 1 was Eva born at 7:15. Your answer gives you.
I'm pretty sure it was in. Well, I do remember that that Jocelyn spent a long time with her in labor.
Mm-hmm.
So it was it was probably another day later than what we thought it was going to be.
8 years ago today. Boy,
Yeah.
those kids are growing fast.
I remember Dana drove me to. Here's a question for you that you might not know. In what state was Eva born?
Oh, not Virginia.
No, she's the only one.
Interesting.
Wow.
So her birth certificate isn't going to say Virginia
I
on
don't
it?
think so.
Wow. That's like me. It's always driven me a little crazy that I was born in Clifton Forge, Virginia, because I just feel so Stanton through and through, and it's the
Yeah.
one mark on my people that.
Well, I guess nobody's born in Stanton anymore, are they?
That's a good point.
With the no hospital.
That's a good
there.
point.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
Unless you're born in the back of an Uber or something.
Right.
So what's the answer?
You-
Should we keep guessing?
Wait a minute.
Maryland.
So you drove there? So it has to be driving distance.
We drove there. Dana drove me there to see the baby.
I'll say North Carolina.
Well, you want to guess? Starts with a T.
Pennsylvania.
Starts with a T.
Texas.
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Closer. We
Oh,
went-
of course.
yeah. Daniel
Knoxville.
taught a year at
Oh.
the University of Tennessee.
Right.
That's a good little drive.
It was. We had to spend the night in a motel one time.
Man.
First time I'd ever spent a night in a motel with a woman.
Really?
No.
No,
Look at that face he puts.
that was about as big a lie as I can tell. No, I don't know. That might be true. I'm pretty cheap.
We can make it.
looks like we're
Exactly. Just pull over.
These woods look awfully comfortable. We'll just pull the car off down this dirt road and pull it.
But yep, that was my first little grandchild.
Joe got the right answer in the chat. He won that round of OK Google It.
Okay.
Tennessee.
Joe.
Yeah, I've seen this like on something, but I saw it afterwards. We used to drive. I think somewhere we used to go all the time, but we would stop. We were on some kind of one of those parkways, maybe it was Pennsylvania or something, where there's really no hotels or anything. So they just had these huge rest stops, just 24-hour showers and all that stuff. But we would spend the night there, we'd find like a place with no cars around us and go, get the car ready to go to sleep. As soon as you're ready to go to sleep, somebody will pull up right beside you. It's like, always. I guess they're looking for the safety of numbers, but it's like, oh my God, now you've got us totally freaked out. So by the time you wake up, there's just cars all around you. Like, oh, you can barely close your eyes. You're like, let's move the car to another safe place.
I always think it's a interesting thing about how, it's sort of probably 50 years ago or whatever, it became sort of the first time in human history that every square inch of land was owned or somebody had like even in the 20s or all through human history, you could roam around like gypsies or hobos or whatever. You could live that life. It was a whole lifestyle culture. You could be nomadic and just sort of plop up here in a field or set up camp here. It didn't really matter. And it's only been, in the last half century or something where that's no longer the case. And wherever you go, there's probably going to be someone coming up and rapping on your door or something and being like, you're not allowed to be here. And that's, I think about that. I think it's a pretty profound shift in culture and opportunities and possibilities of ways to live. I remember attending a meeting out at your house in Trinity Point where an officer came to tell us ways to protect ourselves from the gypsies and the ploys that they would use, the different cons they would use. He would be like, you'll have a lady come up and act like she's in distress and need to use your phone. She'll have a child hidden under her dress, and the child will sneak out from under the dress and steal things from your house while she's making the phone call.
Wow.
This was on your back porch.
I don't even remember that.
You don't remember that?
No.
Gypsy Hill Park. This place used to be just rampant with gypsies. just.
Well, when I worked in Richmond at a record store, we had the police would come during like the state fair and stuff and warn us how gypsies, like you said, they have a plan of how to rob. They would come in and steal tapes and CDs and stuff.
I don't think people are having those meetings anymore. I think that concern is gone. And one just ironic twist to the whole nomadic lifestyle and being a gypsy these days. The one place you're allowed to sleep overnight now without harassment is the Walmart parking lot. Walmart saw an opportunity. You know, there's nowhere for these people to sleep in their vehicles for the night, and I bet they'll come in here and buy stuff for their trip. So Walmart made it a national policy that you're allowed to sleep in your vehicle in a Walmart parking lot.
Isn't that nice?
So there you go, hippies.
Well, when we lived in New Jersey, there was a town called Lakewood. They had a minor league baseball team we would go to all the time. And going to the stadium, there was maybe like a half a mile stretch of woods, and it was just packed full of gypsies. From the road, you could just see tents and camps and stuff. And I can't remember, they lived there like 20 years or something before they actually were going to pay to put them in, like, you know, I guess sort of rundown hotels or something. They were just like, we can't take it anymore. They've taken it over. You know, you just ride by and like, it's like a camp there, you know, like a settlement. It was very strange.
That is strange. It's cool though.
Yeah.
It's. I feel like it's only the natural course of things. It was bound to happen eventually, but I could talk about this for hours because it's such a cultural loss to lose nomadic culture as part of your fabric of your society. It's always so fascinating. I feel lucky to have experienced the tail end of it, even in my little life or whatever, with the Grateful Dead was still around, and that was a whole nomadic culture. The rainbow gatherings. You ever been to one of those?
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The rainbow there was still Dave Tiller and Van Devener, when they left Virginia as kids, they hopped a train to go west. There was, you know, and the hobo culture has always been really fascinating to me. Just the trailers for sale or rent. I mean, it used to be the subject of so many songs, and it was the rambling lifestyle is not nearly the possibility that it used to be. It's just all owned. It's all private property.
Well, just think back then, if you wanted to meet other people with the same interests or likes or you'd have to go out and find them. Now you're just sitting in your bedroom, you know, hey, I got 100 friends that all like the same stuff I do. You never need to leave anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's a totally different world that we live in.
100% different in such a short
in many
amount of time.
ways.
All right, we ready to
I think it's
it's time.
right.
7:15. Okay,
right.
let's see. Kyle, will you grab that tray there? A little magic music, please, maestro.
This is for Eva.
You got some. All right, you got some water there, Dad. We pour that water in this cup here. Oh yeah, you can pour all of it in there. All right. 1 cup of water. 1 bar napkin. Okay, you can take the tray away. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday!
Oh my God.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Eva. Happy birthday to you. Woohoo! Oh, hey, and we're out.
Perfect.
That'll be a nice edit.
Happy birthday, Eva. Hope
Yay.
You're having a good time over there.
Welcome to the world of magic.
Good job.
That was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. I don't.
So this is the third, two out of 3 weeks, or was that last week you did magic too? What was the other
Not
birthday
last week.
party? 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, I think he did one.
Man, you're back regular gigging again.
Yeah, it's coming back to me. I am determined now to work it back into my live streams when I'm doing my music. I do live streams usually, a lot of times late at night, but I'm trying to do more day shows too. Usually go live for about an hour and a half, take requests, and play funny versions of the songs using all my new musical toys and stuff. But with the loops and my little synthesizer and stuff, I can get a loop going, and the music keeps going, and then I can perform a trick for the camera. So it's sort of a nice little... I got my puppets going strong, and the magic is coming back into the fold, because the loops sort of allow me to have like some music going, and then I'll just do a magic trick or whatever and cut to something else. It's coming back, entering another phase of magic.
I was watching, I don't know what night it was, but you did have your magical window going. With
Yeah, that's my new favorite thing.
I think it was like a storm or something going on. I can't remember what it was.
I have that
What is it?
I have that window. That
It's like a window pane, but when you're looking at it, it looks like you're looking outside.
this is how I made this. So that's a green screen, and then while I'm playing, people in Discord can put up little animated pictures called GIFs.
Oh, they were doing it?
Yeah, it's the people watching that are changing what's in the
Oh,
window.
that's cool.
So this is a special room on Discord where people will upload their GIFs or GIFs, however you want to call it. And so whatever picture they put up on that page in Discord shows up in the window while I'm playing. So
Where do they get all these?
it's sort of built into the app. It's sort of like on your phone. You can send
It just
people.
shows different things all the time.
Yeah, you can search for terms. So people that are familiar with my songs, so they just click there, hit plus, or whatever, hit one of the GIFs. It's a whole little section. Here we can type in.
So you really don't know what's going on behind you, or you can see it on the screen?
I can see it on the screen, so I can react to what's in the window.
You get 4 different ones at one time with that 4 panes.
So like, no, I could do that, but
Well,
I just typed in "Happy Birthday." So if I was live right now, that would show up in the window with all the. But I'm proud of the technology and just always trying to find ways to make the show interactive. So, especially for people that know my songs, they know a lyric is coming up, so they'll search for the GIF that will reflect that lyric.
Right.
So they're sitting there ready, waiting for the timing when he gets to the dog with a bone verse or whatever. I got the perfect GIF for it, and so they're helping me make sort of spontaneous live music videos.
Huh.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah,
Very, very proud of that.
remarkable. Well, what if 2 people want to put something on at the same time?
Well, there is the rub of you get if the show ever catches on and there's hundreds of people watching, it would just be like this in the window, and that would be ridiculous.
Right.
It would just because whoever puts the next. Kethra had one when I was playing a song of mine, Fiesta, and she had the 3 amigos with their maracas, and she was like, "Oh my God, I had the perfect one." And as soon as hers went up, someone else did one, and hers got booted. So hers is like in the window for like 2 seconds, and she was like, "Oh," I just felt robbed. But I do have some control where I can stop it from automatically. If I see one I like, I can go to it and have it stay on that one for a little while before it goes back into the moving.
God, how do you focus on all this stuff at one time?
It's a lot. I call it spinning plates. You know, the old act where they get all those plates going up on sticks.
That was crazy.
That was crazy. Somebody should bring that back.
No, are you gonna do any magic at your show at the park?
No. No.
So when you show up, don't be chanting for it. It's not gonna happen.
Back when there was a good 2-year period there where I was convinced that being the world's first sleight of hand musician was going to be my gimmick that was going to put me on the map. That's when I changed my name to Percy Boyd. In some ways, I was like, Percy Boyd would be a good name for this character. He's like a modern day hobo, magician, minstrel. And I have a big affinity for the hobo, gypsy, nomadic idea. That's why I think about that stuff so much. But I was like, this is it. This is my gimmick. It's going to be my hook. This is going to differentiate me or separate me from the crowd or whatever. And so I just went for it for like 2 years. I did magic every show, and I had a little looper, and I was just doing everything. I got so exhausted. It was just like so much pressure on my brain. And at the end of the day, I remember even Steve Talley pulled me aside and was like, you know, I feel like you are, and I'm probably doing this on a nightly basis with my streams, because what I'm really good at is writing a song with meaningful lyrics. That's probably the thing that I'm actually exceptional at in some way, because I put so much work into it, and I was sort of hiding that, and it was starting to get to be, if I showed up at a show and I didn't do magic, there were people that would be upset by that and would be worried about me. And then there were fans of my songs that were like, why is Leonard Cohen doing magic tricks? You know, like, I don't need to see Leonard Cohen pulling balls out of his butt or whatever, you know, like, I just don't need to see it. So it is all very, you know, the whole career's been very confusing, because I have all these ideas and all these, but what I should be doing, I don't know. I mumble.
Now, when Dylan, what was the traveling? What was that? Not the traveling Wilburys, but the tour he had back in the '70s with like 70 people. What was that called? Rolling Thunder.
Thunder Review.
Did he have like magicians and stuff, different types of entertainment, or was it just all music?
I wonder. I'm not sure about that.
Or did he sort of like bring his own little carnival into town?
Right.
I read a book about it. Now I can't remember it. I mean, he had like a whole group of, you know, talented.
That was our ultimate dream there for a while. When I first met the Slip and the Musement and the whole circle of people, we were gonna join forces with one of those traveling circus carnivals that like pop up out near the mall or whatever, and that have games and rides. Get like 5 bands to team up with one of them and make that the thing that goes from town to town. Set up for a few days and do a festival with that's all centered around I mean, there was a good 10 years there where this whole carnival dream, I felt like, was about to explode into something. Surprisingly, Mr. Davis did a lot of magic in the early days. And that was really fun, doing it with a band and getting them all involved. And we would go as a band to the first night of the tour would be like, is there a magic shop in that town? And we'd all go in there as a band. And magic shops are so much fun. Another dying breed. I feel so grateful that when I first started touring, there was still a magic shop in every city. So every city we go to, I'd be like, all right, where's the magic shop?
Now, if you go to a magic shop and you're just a clown like me, do they just, like, you ask questions, they go, you need to know what to do with it, or just get out of here? Or do they want somebody that knows what they're doing? Like, that's what I need.
One of the things that's really fun about a magic shop, and if you're really a magician, you can sort of convey that in some way to whittle the person down. But one thing that's really fun about a magic shop is what they do is the salesman in there is a magician. And he is ready to perform. He sells the tricks by blowing your mind with them.
He's been waiting
so
on
you
me.
go in there, you're like, what's that thing do? He's like, oh my God, you've never seen this? And he grabs it from the shelf and brings it down, blows your mind. Now if you want to know how that's done, that's $56. And it's just...
Oh, they would tell you how to do it?
Oh, they won't. Of course
Oh,
not.
they
That's
would
that's
sell
the
you the
thing.
thing.
That's
Oh,
how
okay.
that's how they sell it. They sell it to you by blowing your mind, and then you have to buy the trick to find out the secret of how it's done.
But the tricks come with directions, or you just have to?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah. Some will come with a video, but most with just a little booklet or
No,
something.
I didn't know it was like you just said, all right, that's what I've been looking for, and you have to get it home and try to figure out what the heck it was.
Nah, very detailed instructions.
Oh, wow.
I got a whole filing cabinet full of the instructions that came with every magic trick I ever bought down there.
Wow.
Now,
You can learn a lot just from those.
Now, are you good at like the ball and the cup type of things? Like when you move the ball around?
I put some time into it. I got a cups and balls set over there. I came up with a whole version that this was years ago. I can't really do it anymore, but you know, another thing that's really fun about magic is magicians, you have to develop what they call patter. And the patter is what you say as you're doing the trick,
Right.
you know, and the patter, and a lot of magicians are famous for their patter as much as anything
Right.
else. The story they're telling with so I came up with a whole version of cups and balls using Jefferson cups. And I would tell the whole history of the Jefferson Cup.
Oh,
Do you remember Jefferson Cups? You got them from tennis
you
matches.
Probably got some.
That's where I got them.
Racquetball.
Your old awards.
Yeah, the racquetball awards.
So that was my like localized version of the original magic trick. Cups and
Right.
balls is like the OG magic
Right.
trick. That was like there's pictures of that on cave paintings, cave walls and
Man.
stuff in Egypt and but my version was with 3 Jefferson cups, and instead of a wand, I would use a feather, like a feather quill pen or whatever, with a little Jefferson
Wow.
theme to my cups and balls routine.
wow. And when I lived in Richmond, I had to ride the bus to work for like 2 years, and there's always be just some guy sitting with like a paper just folded up on his lap, and it'd be like, "Come on, first one's free. Guess where the ball is?" And they could just do that. The bus was moving and stopping. Like first one they probably let. I mean, I would never do it. I knew, but people would like they pick it. He goes, "All right, $5. This yours." Want to try again? Give me the $5 back. And then after that, you'd never see that ball again. Then anybody else want to do it? They'd go to another part of the. And I was coming to me, and I was like, no, please. I don't have very much money. But it was like you said, it was a whole story. Like they convinced you, oh look, you can figure it out. They let you figure out the first one,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they give you the first one. Yeah, those con men really hurt our profession with their making people feel like they're, like it added a whole layer of disdain to being tricked that wouldn't
Right.
necessarily exist without that whole subset. It's sort of like psychics and stuff, like that are just
Right.
sort of getting as much money out of their
Right.
victims as possible, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a second. I remember that when I lived in Austin, Texas, there was a span there where I had a little magic booth attached to this bar down. The Black Cat Lounge had these like places they used to sell tickets, but they weren't using them anymore. And my band played there every Thursday, so we got to be really good friends with the owners of the lounge. And I was like, would you let me use one of your booths attached to, and it was on 6th Street. It was like on the main street in downtown Austin, Texas, where all the music was. And I had like $1 a trick sign up there. So I would go down there on Friday and Saturday nights, $1 a trick, and do magic for people coming by. And people would come up and
This was
ask me.
outside on the street.
It was on right on the
Oh,
sidewalk,
wow.
right on the sidewalk. And I had a little sign. In fact, years later, when Davis was playing there, I think I was like, we took a walk down 6th Street and we looked behind the bars where that little thing on the side of the Black Cat Lounge used to be, and you could still see my cards taped up on the wall back behind there. But people would come up and be like, "Hey, can you do the 3-card thing?" Like, begging me to do it. They're like, they wanted to gamble. They wanted to find the queen or
Right.
whatever it was, and so I didn't feel too bad about that. I took their money, and they seemed happy. They asked me to do it. I never sat out there and
Right.
tried to do that, but people are gluttons.
But it was a trick, right?
Mm-hmm. There's lots of moves, and there's 3 versions of that. Or the 2 most famous ones is 3 walnut shells and a pea. and you put the pea under one. You mix them up. Now, which walnut shell is the pea under?
Right.
And the other is
But-
three cards, and like
But was it sleight of hand, or
there's
was there a trick, literally a trick that they
See,
couldn't?
he can't tell you that on air.
oh, there's moves in all of these things that are sleight of hand.
You're supposed to just say it's magic.
Well, those are not. They're not even put out there as magic, though. They're put out there as just a speed, like and
Sucker
confusion or whatever. But people don't realize that there are tricks being employed there
Right.
with the P and the.
And I think a lot of people know it's a trick, but they're trying to figure out the trick.
Right.
So they're trying to outsmart the trick.
Yeah, the 3-card Monty is the name of the other
So
one.
they'll do stuff like, this is my brilliance. I would pick what I think you think I thought I was going to pick, and then I'd pick the other one.
Right.
Yeah, I got him that time. Those are the ones that keep coming back.
They are fascinating characters because they get so good at reading people, and they see you coming a mile away with that theory of yours. Like, oh, I know how he thinks he's going to beat me. They
Yeah.
can just see it in your
Got
eyes or
everybody
something.
categorized.
And I love the use of shills. Shills are great in actual magic too, but for con men, it's just sort of I've always had a romantic notion of the shill. Like if you were my shill, like we'd be up in New York City, Dad would be coming along, and you'd be doing, and you'd find the card
Right.
or whatever, and you'd win,
Right.
and you'd make like $50 and skip out of there a happy kid, and then Dad's like, oh, okay, I got this, I saw it, but me and you are in on it
Right.
together. And you're just pretending to win.
shill.
The
I
shill.
I was reading something about, I think it was in New York, some big city where people walk out in front of a car, like they plan to get hit. They're like whatever, like a gymnast or whatever. And then a guy will come up, like the shill will come up and be like, I'm a doctor, oh my God, if you take him to the hospital, it's going to be this much, but if you give me like $100 right now, I can take him back to the office and fix him up, and they just like tourists, like, oh my God, I don't want to, go to the hospital. So they give this guy like $200, $100. He loads him into a car. Then the guy just totally fine. It's like he just does some kind of twist when the car hits him, but doesn't really hurt him or anything.
Cons. You ever been involved in a con?
As a victim,
Yeah, or either way, either side.
I don't think I've ever been in a position where I was taken advantage. I don't know.
That's the beauty of a good con, when you don't even know you've been conned.
That's right.
Yeah.
A lot of just normal transactions these days feel like cons with like online
I've
stuff
always
or-
been a very suspicious person about all. If it's too good to be true, somebody's making
Right.
money off of it.
Right.
And I've always looked for the con man around every corner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a bad way to live.
It's
'cause
not.
You're usually in the ball game. Or if not, then you still are taking a good look around. A lot of times it's not the person you think is being the con person, but there's somebody off to the side that might be taking advantage of the situation. So, yeah. But no, I don't think I ever really got involved with conning people. Poker's a good example, where, you look at that and, you're trying to, you never cheat with the cards, but you definitely are trying to use subterfuge to fool them into thinking you don't have something or you do. So there's a little bit of con.
100%.
There's a whole lot of con going on in the poker game.
That's exactly right.
A good poker player is not gonna let you see the same thing twice, and it's.
You ever
there
played
is-
enough poker with somebody that you discovered their tell? In poker, there's the phrase, they have a tell. You can tell when they're lying or they're bluffing by something that they do. Like, every time he bluffs, he gets a sniffle or something. And most people are oblivious to their tell.
I never played for enough money to warrant doing that.
Right.
My poker experience has always been with friends,
Mm-hmm.
and the money is just enough to make it interesting, but
Right.
not enough to make it worth
Studying.
studying and doing all that stuff. So the answer to that is no. I never really, but I have played with people for years, and I know their behaviors.
Right.
I know who's aggressive, and I know who bluffs, and
Right.
but in a general sense, not.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly I'm trying to not give away my tells. Is my
Right.
main thing, is to try to not let them see what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not really that. I'm just playing odds and hands. But yeah, you have to at some point say, is he bluffing or not?
Right.
And it always comes down to studying behavior or looking in the mirror or whatever.
Now,
Go ahead.
When you do magic, like I know, like you said, there's these directions and books and magazines and stuff. Is there like directions on how to read a crowd or how to handle somebody that's
Oh yeah.
getting too close, or so they try to teach you all that stuff too?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. But just back to poker for a second. We recently, just in the last couple of years, have started to get really into poker. We do
Oh,
it when
really?
we go camping. We got the
What do you play?
usually we started out, for the most part, all we played was what's the 7 cards with the
Stud.
5 in the middle that everybody shares.
Oh,
Texas Hold'em.
Texas Hold'em.
That was all the big rage. And Saul would usually deal, just have one, and this is when everybody was learning. The last few times we played, we've broken out into dealer's choice of the games.
Yeah.
And then Rennie came and introduced the notion of the wild card. When it got to be his deal, he had something wild. I know that there's a lot of different attitudes about wild cards, whether or not that's...
My group has always played 7 stud high low. Play with 7 players, and so you split the pot. But it's, you can go high or low, and so you have 2 winners and no wild
play poker
cards.
at all? You never played? Will you come play with us some night?
You have to give me the instruction book.
That's all right.
And $50.
That's right.
Yeah. I'll give you the chart of what beats what and $50.
Yeah, but with your sleight of hand, how do they know you're not having cards?
I would never cheat at card. I don't want to get shot. It's not worth it. Like he says, the stakes aren't high enough to risk something like that. And actually, the higher they... But the truth of the matter is not only am I not that greedy, but I'm not that skilled, really. Like, I would get caught. I always get caught, no matter what, anyway.
Now, what is this thing counting cards? Like, how many aces have been played, or what? So you sort of
Rain Man.
memorize what's left in the deck. Is that what it is?
Like back in the day, like in Vegas, you go to a blackjack table, and they just have a few decks of cards shuffled or whatever, and they go through that deck, and then when they got to the end, then they'd have to change it out. But those are a finite amount of cards, and so someone that was really astute eventually figured out that you could keep track of all the cards that have been played so far. And as you move through the deck, you started to have an understanding of what's left in there. And you start raising your bets. And that's what Rain Man was based on. The guy was savant or whatever that could remember all numbers. So he could get pretty close to knowing exactly what was left down there towards the end. Margie says, "I'll teach you how to play, Kyle." We have a lot of people in chat want Kyle to come learn how to play poker with their crew.
Margie used to play all the time. She was good at it.
I used to live in New Mexico, and the casinos came. I was there when they built the first casino in Nambe, and my friend Duncan got really into the poker there. That was some serious poker. He would. It either make or break his month. And, some
Now, is there such thing as a good poker player and a bad poker player, or is it just sort of luck?
big
Oh,
time.
no, there's
People do it professionally.
But because what? They just don't know. I mean, what makes you a bad poker player?
Well, a bad poker player doesn't know when to get out. Doesn't you bluff wrong, or
has tells.
has tells.
So, it's not really how you deal with the cards. You just don't understand like the flow of the game.
Well, there's the mathematical part that you can be stupid at, but most people will figure that out after a while. But a smarter player knows more odds than a dumber player.
Right.
But there are people that just don't count. They don't do the math at all.
So
And they're very analytical guys. That's all they do. And there's different things you can be good at. But the psychology is just as important as cards.
It maybe is the most important part of it.
Oh, I think it is. The makeup.
That's
that
what's
you
so
have.
fun about poker. Why people love it so much is that if you're not reading the people around and sort of interpreting all the subtle little things that are happening, you're probably not going to do that well.
So if people have always told me I could never lie, you're a terrible liar, I'd be terrible at poker.
Not necessarily.
If you wanted to be good at poker, you could use all those to your favor.
Yeah, I mean, like you're seeing lying as you're doing something wrong.
Right.
But if you were playing poker, you wouldn't see it as it's just a skill or a
Trickery.
ploy.
Yeah. Okay.
It's something you're doing. It's part of the game.
Right.
So you wouldn't feel that negative energy, or you shouldn't.
Right.
If you do, you shouldn't play
Right.
poker. But
Do you know what a bluff is? So four of a kind obviously beats two of a kind, right? That makes sense. So if you have two of a kind and someone else has four of a kind or whatever, but all right, I might be making it more confusing than it has to be. You can raise your bet so much that you scare everybody else
They
away.
think you get better than
You're like,
everybody
I'll
else.
bet you $100, and if you're betting $100 and you don't have anything, that's a bluff.
Okay.
So you're betting like you have four of a kind,
Right.
but you really have a pair or whatever. So
Right.
you're bluffing.
Okay.
You're acting like you got something that you don't,
Right.
and that's a huge part of poker because you can win a lot of money with just well played, well timed, well done bluffs.
No, people get mad about that if they
It's
throw it in and
it's a
they-
fun thing. One of the dynamics I love about poker is in a serious game, because you can always fold. If I'm like, all right, I'll raise it $10, and you're like, all right, it's too rich for my blood, I'm out, and I fold. If you fold and I'm the last one standing, I take the pot, and I never show you.
Right.
You never have to show your cards. The only way you'll see my cards is if you match my bet.
Okay.
So you have to pay to see. It would cost you
Okay.
$10 to know if I'm bluffing or not. You'll never know. I might have had it. I might not have had it. It'll cost you $10 to find out.
But people their ego never gets them. They're like, I only had this, or they.
Oh,
that'll happen.
it happens. You know,
It's not cool.
That's when fist fights start.
Margie knows what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. It's funny because all that we're talking about will happen whether you're talking about a quarter ante bet or $500.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same process. That's why I said the money has. We only pay 50 cents a dollar a hand type thing, whereas if you're a real estate mogul, that wouldn't be interesting enough. It'd be like using pennies or matchsticks.
Right.
You got to use enough that it hurts a little bit to lose.
Right.
But you don't want to go. So, on a good night with my crew, on a good night you can win 20 or lose 25 or 30. Never,
Mm-hmm. It is enough to make it fun.
Yeah.
Buy yourself a pizza with it or something.
But you're not playing for the money.
Right.
Now there are people, and in high school I used to play in different games, and I'd see there were people moving from table
What was
to
the
table.
most serious game you recall playing? It was just
Well,
legit stakes. What was the story behind that?
I never really got into the money, serious money at all. You know, it's just that it got to be like maybe $1 more, like $10 on the last bet or something like that. But the people were serious. You know,
right.
so it wasn't the money. It was, you know, because it's all about winning, and money is just one way of measuring your winning. But
Right.
a lot of it has to do with wanting to beat the other guy, just like any other game.
Right.
You want to win. So, but yeah, I never took it seriously enough to feel like I could make money at it.
When you were in Vegas, that was all mostly sports gambling.
It was all sports. I didn't sit down at a poker table
Oh,
once. I didn't, you know, because anytime there was enough money involved, you're talking about professionals. These guys were sitting there all day, and I couldn't come in off the street, and it would take me years to learn enough to even stay with them. So I wasn't there for that. I was there for the sports betting.
You watch these like pros and stuff. I mean, they got it down to a science. But when you start understanding tells and bluffs and the psychology, you realize that they have this whole thing going on with the way they look, the way they act. Like everything is sort of calculated to put the attention where they want it to be.
Yeah, I've watched like
Sunglasses.
Yeah, I've seen them
If
on
you can't
TV.
hide your eyes, you got to be a sunglasses person. Like
Oh, I hate those.
visors.
I mean, I can't
there's-
believe they let them do that. That should be against the law.
now.
That's true.
So like, if you're betting on games, like, what do you do when there's no games on? Like, if it's like so Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, of course you'd be all booked up. But like, what if it's a Thursday? Do you just
Well,
hang
you
out?
study.
Study.
That's when you do your studying for the next weekend or whatever.
Do you go looking for women?
That's an option. Yeah, you don't.
Oh, you mean when he was in
I mean,
Vegas?
all work and no play.
I'm gonna,
makes-
I'm gonna go down to the bar and study for a little while. See y'all a little bit.
When I did that in Las Vegas, but I was trying to save all my money, so I wasn't spending it on women or alcohol.
Wow.
And
Well,
with
it's
sports
been- I was-
gambling, there's a lot. You could study. There's no end to how much you could study if
Well,
you
like
wanted to.
I've been to like casinos a couple times, just goofing around. But they give you free drinks and everything.
Oh, they.
So if you're sports gambling, or that's something you do, then you go away. They don't really.
If all I'd have to do to get a free drink would be to slip over to the slot machines and sit down for a minute and
Right.
somebody'd bring me something.
They wouldn't bring you drinks in the sports part of the gambling as
Well,
long as you were betting.
They would probably bring you one or two, but if you're just sitting there ordering, you can order a drink.
Casinos
still
are
pretty-
ruthless like that. They hide all. There's no natural light, no windows, so you have no idea what time it is outside. And they keep the free drinks coming. Soon as you sit down in front of a slot
They
machine.
increase the percentage of oxygen.
Yeah. I heard
They do that.
Is it right? Yeah, they've thought of it everything.
Well,
I
get-
guarantee you'll be one of the last places on the planet that will go smoke free
Yeah,
entirely.
I remember going the first morning I was in Las Vegas. I had never been to Las Vegas. I just pulled in out of the desert, drove across the desert, pulled in, and I went, and I hadn't eaten in the whole day. And so I went and got an all-you-can-eat breakfast and this wonderful meal, and I paid for it, and I had my orange juice, and I wanted more orange juice. Well, they charged me for the orange juice. I thought, yeah, because I'd already paid, but it was extra. And then I said, well, I'll just, no. So I started playing, going over to a video poker machine and sat down, and this woman in a skimpy outfit came by and gave me a screwdriver. It was orange juice. It was this big. And I said, wait a minute, I just paid 75 cents
For a refill.
for orange juice, and you just gave me orange juice for free with alcohol in it. And I am in a weird place.
You're not in Kansas
No,
anymore,
I'm
Dorothy.
not. And then it got crazy after that.
Right. The rest of the blur.
But see, that's something too. Like when we would go, it'd just we'd be on vacation or something. We didn't know like the etiquette. Like every time they bring you a drink, you're supposed to give them like a tip, I was spending more money just tipping them. Like
Vegas is completely different rules than anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, they were. If you liked the girl, you'd tip her. If not, she's just passing through anyway.
Yeah, it was. They would have a tray of drinks, just sort of. I mean, I guess you could special ask for stuff or whatever.
Oh yeah, and then you'd probably tip. So.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. Not to mention that it's just ecologically crazy. It seems more obvious every year how not uninformed, misled, misguided, just what a bad idea Las Vegas was on so many levels. Just to have a huge city in the middle of the desert like that. They're stealing Colorado's water at this point.
Yeah. They're pumping in all that energy. They don't have any energy. Really.
You're not allowed to catch the rain off your own house in Colorado because of Las Vegas. Basically, it's against the law to have a rain barrel on your own property, which to me is a complete threat to autonomy, self-reliance, self-sustainability. Like it's a complete affront to freedom to a certain extent, but the water is that desperately needed further downriver that people putting rain barrels on catching the water off their roof is depriving the water from going into the basin to be distributed all the way down to Vegas.
Well, it's
so
like
fascinating.
the movie Chinatown, just how much money is spent, like these politicians might just own some deserted land, 30 miles from LA, but then if they can just somehow get water there, this land they bought for pennies is worth, thousands.
Mm-hmm.
So they vote and do all this stuff, to Colorado, so they can get pipeline built out there. Then they sell the land and make a fortune.
The politics of water are going to only get more and more fascinating as we progress through all the changes.
I just took an insurance class on flood insurance today. And we learned about FEMA, the flood insurance. FEMA had, when Katrina came through, Katrina had $5 billion. That was like for the whole United States, they had like a fund of $5 billion. Katrina cost $25 billion.
Oh, wow.
So they were $20 million short of being able to, even pay anything down there. And that's why they say now everybody, like if you even get an insurance policy, they charge you like $45 just to have a flood insurance policy. There's any little thing they can do to make up, money for it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still trying to make up $20 billion. That's like, I mean, you think if you have $5 billion, you can pretty much take care
Yeah,
of whatever.
bring it.
Yeah. And then like New Orleans is, just underwater. It's just.
It's so funny how, like once you get, I was for some reason when we were out front earlier today, I was thinking about numbers. Like I heard some actress was, back in the 70s was getting paid $150,000 an episode. I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. But then I started thinking, I was like, well, if that show generates millions of dollars every week from ad revenue or whatever, then, it's, you could flippantly, give her 200,000.
Right.
Like once you start getting into the big numbers, like it's the same as, to me, like if I give you 20, take 25. Like that's no sweat off my back. Here, take an extra 10 in case you want to pick up something. Here's 30. Like that's I could be cavalier like that. But then you start getting up into the higher numbers. It's like, oh, here, take 50,000. And I mean, it's like life-changing amounts of money that can be completely flippantly decided because they're dealing with such astronomical figures to begin with. It's just fascinating to me. The people that have so much wealth, they can just sort of be flippant with life-changing sums of money.
Right.
If you're a billionaire, what's $100,000 to you? It's the same as $10 to me, and that just hurts my brain thinking about it. It's like
Well, did you
it's
see-
the same as $10.
Did you see that Michael Jordan, when he bought the Charlotte Hornets, it was like I forget what it was, 18 million or something they paid. Now it's worth over $1 billion.
Wow.
Like, hey, if you have money, it's almost like money just comes. I mean, I'm sure people have money and waste it and lose it on bad investments, but if you have enough to buy something and you just wait long enough, it's like it just comes. Oh, like the sports teams, we're paying paying like an average, whatever, $10 million to each person a year or something. Think how much money the owners must be making to be able to just pay that out and still live a life of luxury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you start getting up there, it's surreal. It's
Now, do you ever get any publishing like royalties or?
yeah, but not like large sums. Like I get a couple of checks a year from different things here for $10 here, $100 there, whatever. It just makes me feel like an actual songwriter. That's the reward. That's the real reward. I'm a real songwriter. I am. Look.
No,
I just framed the checks.
is that because they were played somewhere or somebody else performed them? Or
If
they
someone like
recorded them?
records one of my songs, or if I get a co-write or something, any money they get for uses of it, whether it's a commercial or stuff like that, then they have to send me money for printing it. I even forget how it works. I think the most I've gotten was from a Bar Brothers co-write, and I'm not sure how they get all the money. But it like say the Bar Brothers records one of my songs, and then that song gets used in a show, and then that show goes into syndication, and it's played on different channels every year, like Grey's Anatomy or something like that. Then they'll be getting checks, and then they got to send me my cut or whatever. So,
But like, if somebody played this, if some DJ fell in love with a song of yours and played it every week for 10 years, you don't get it for being played on the radio, do you?
I would get a tiny
You did?
thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, who keeps
And
track
I'd frame
of
it.
that?
Huh?
Who keeps track of?
There's a couple of organizations. One's called ASCAP, and one's called BMI. Those are the two most famous ones. And their entire job is to collect, make sure artists get paid, which sounds noble. I sort of consider them rather nefarious entities as well. There's sort of a double-edged sword. I remember back there was some Napster. You probably don't remember Napster, but you probably do. But Napster was this thing that threatened the entire. It began the beginning of the great digital change, because there was a while there where Napster was this app you had on your computer, and you could load all of your music into Napster, and then it became available to the entire world. So it was the true idea of the internet, that everybody was connected to each other. So if you had one record in your Napster that I didn't have, if I searched Bob Dylan, you would be part of the pool that would come up, and then I could download it direct. I would be downloading like directly off his computer. It was a worldwide network, and it was mind blowing. I mean, I typed in Nick Drake one day, and all of a sudden I was hearing like home recordings. And I was like, what? I've never seen anything like it since. And people try to convince me that Spotify and things like that are similar now. Not by a long shot. Like what was available on Napster, because it was everybody's just personal collections. It was like the true dream of the internet. But then artists started freaking out, because that was the first moment where, like, oh my God, everything's free now. Like, there was no way to stop it. Everything was free now. And then, like, all kinds of weird stuff started getting shared on Napster and LimeWire, and this technology was getting riddled with you know bad content, violent crimes and stuff, like videos and stuff that no one should have, and so Congress and the whole world got together and sort of cracked down on it and put an end to it. Wait, what? Where did I start with that? What were we talking about? Royalties and
Oh yeah.
Oh, right. So then there was this huge wave of backlash where artists weren't getting paid for their work. So it became this like noble crusade to reward artists for their work. But really, under the guise of that nobility of making sure artists are getting paid, the internet became firewalled and regulated, and it was no longer the promise of that no one can stop this interconnectedness. We are now, all of a sudden there were gatekeepers put in place under the guise of nobility, and I wasn't a fan of it. I was as a radical revolutionary. I was like, I don't know, I could see why this is scary, but this is exciting. This is amazing. I just heard Nick Drake home recordings I've never heard in my life. To me, it was just all amazing that I could have access to all that music like that for free, and it just seemed revolutionary, and I was excited to see where it went, and it sort of made me a little sad when the gatekeepers came in and figured out a way to control all those flows. But then the next thing you know, there's like, I can tell you two different stories. I won't, but like Marinos. Suddenly I'm in there one day and Marinos has this sign up. I got it hanging right over here. Oh gosh, I lost it.
What to say? No magic?
No, sorta. It said, we only allow all original music at Marinos.
Oh wow.
Do you remember these signs? They were
For
up and
live
all over the
performances?
room. Now, Marinos is a legendary local establishment that had music being played at it for 100 years, like forever. It was a famous. It is a famous musical institution here in Stanton. And one day, Beanie hangs up all these signs. I'm like, what is this? She was visited by men in suits that were like, we hear your people are performing our artists' music here at Marinos on Tuesday nights, singing a Hank Williams song, singing a Willie Nelson song. You're not allowed to do that without Marinos paying ASCAP or BMI a certain amount of money to have people. And so the next thing you know, they're hanging these signs up out of fear of getting charged by these men in suits. Bowers stopped having live music because they couldn't afford to pay. So if someone played on the patio at Bowers and sang a Jimmy Buffett song, now Bowers has to pay ASCAP for that person singing a Jimmy Buffett song. So they just stopped having live music.
So you just never.
It's insane.
So you just never knew when somebody that worked for ASCAP might be sitting like a undercover.
Right.
There
Right. Like the ABC or something, looking for underage drinking.
So we solved that at Marinos by taking one of them out back. And,
right.
things calmed down after that. Nobody's seen him anymore.
Singing Waylon Jennings all night after that.
Well, I remember when cassettes came out, it was that big thing, taping is killing the music industry. They were like, you could now if like you'd go buy an album and me and him could tape it, they wouldn't get any money. But I remember you used to buy like hardcore albums on tape, and it would be the albums back then were short, like 30 minutes, and it'd say on the other side blank, so you can kill the music industry. Like they would leave the other side blank, so you could go record. It's like, but they would write it on there, go out and kill the music industry. Here's a blank side of the tape.
It's neat. I love all that counterculture stuff.
But the thing is, like you said, it's a noble cause. But like, if you're some hardcore band or probably any band really, you're making so little from what the record company. It's not that the artist doesn't. I mean, the artist probably like just record it and listen to it. I'm just so glad that somebody's listening to it. It's the Warner Brothers or whatever that wants the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
It's definitely complicated stuff.
Like those guys in the suits. very little of that money's going to the artist.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Their BMI is making money for BMI,
Right.
and that's the part that gets you. They're in business for themselves, and using, because most musicians like you sing my songs, please.
Mhm.
That's why I wrote them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think anybody too worried about that. I mean, if you put it on a TV show or on a record and you made a lot of money, I expect you to give me some of that
Right.
money. But if you're doing it just to please some people in the audience, go for it.
Mhm.
And that's where it breaks down.
I used to always, like you were talking about Nick Drake. I mean, wonderful artist. I mean, just love. But how many albums did he really sell? But then he was on wasn't that a VW commercial? And I'm thinking, how much did they
Right.
pay?
Right.
You know, he probably got more. Well, he was passed away, but somebody, whoever owned
Whoever
the money,
owned that recording at the
got
time made more money
for
than
that
he ever
probably,
did in his
yeah.
whole life.
Yeah, like if you can just find the right spot. Like I see like a "Lust for Life," the Iggy Pop song. I see that on all kinds of like cruise commercials and stuff. Now it's like he probably didn't make any money when he was out touring trying to sell the album. You know, then somebody offers you like, I'm sure they must pay you a fortune.
It's a really sad, sort of inspiring story in other ways, but how like Nick Drake was not really, no one got it at the
Right.
time, and he ended up sort of dying from suicide, feeling like a failure, only to 50 years later he's like the new hot thing. Everybody's like, what is this sound? How is it? And it did start with that commercial sort of as a resurgence.
Was it a VW commercial?
Something like that.
But I mean, it sort
But
of.
on the bright side of that is you can always think as an artist, well, I might not be appreciated in my time, like Van Gogh, like I still might be a treasure to humanity at the end of it.
But that's the thing. Here I am, crotchety old man. So I'm like, oh my God, they're taking it and ruining it now. But then, really, they've opened up the music to, such a vast. There's 30 million people watching TV that he would have never had a chance to reach. So it does probably more good than bad. But if you're an original fan, you're like, yeah, you ruined it.
Right. You ever listen to Nick Drake? Was he part of the?
No. I've heard him. I know who you're talking about, but I never really got into him.
You probably recognize the one from the commercial. I don't think he had anything that we would call a hit, but so good.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But one of the things that he suffered from, which is sort of a well-known thing in music circles, is he was bad on TV. And it was right when that was starting to happen.
Oh, well, I never knew that he was on TV.
Well, yeah, that's because he wasn't very. Yeah, I mean, he'd do a couple of. Townes Van Zandt was sort of like that here in America. Like he had a few breaks because he was a love songwriter, but he would go on TV and it was just a little awkward or whatever. And then there's something about being that whole package, like a Johnny Cash or something, that was just like undeniable. Whereas a lot of creative types have insecurities or awkwardness or something like that keeps them from.
I was listening on the internet a couple nights ago. I was listening to it was Donald Van Fleet, Captain Beefheart, just put out like weird, crazy music.
Oh yeah.
He would couldn't write music or play anything, but he would just I wanted it to sound like, and he would like just tell his musicians. He would lock them in like rooms for like days at a time.
Throw them raw steaks.
Yeah, yeah, but they had like these interviews I'd never seen before. I mean, he was very talkative, but so effing crazy. The interviewers were just almost like stop asking questions. They were like, what is this? We got security, come. It's like you couldn't even. I mean, I'm listening. I know his music. I couldn't even figure out what he was talking about.
Right.
It's like just the flights of fancy going off everywhere, and it's like so like you said, like if he's not doing himself unless you just like weird stuff. Like, oh, this guy's weird. Let me go buy the album. He wasn't selling any housewives.
Right.
Like,
right. But that was his fan base too.
Yeah.
Like sort of like Zappa or
Zappa,
something. Yeah. It's pretty amazing how there's a market for all kinds of stuff because I was super into punk and stuff as a kid. Like none of that. If it had mainstream appeal, that would have been the death nail to its fans. Like there was punk music was such a great version of that.
The outsider.
The whole idea of selling out. Like if you sold out, like if you were in a commercial, you're no longer an artist. You've lost all your credibility to the underground. But the underground could be like a thriving, powerful scene, super significant in its own right. And punk had a lot of that. It's like Jello Biafra's, suicidal tendencies. So they were never going to be on Carson. That was the point. That was the whole thing. But there's enough people in the world for that. I mean, I'm sure that exists in some way today, but the underground was always very fascinating to me.
Now, I don't know if it's because my phone is always here and it hears us talk, but I keep getting ads for this touring John Prine cover band. Have you heard of them?
No.
And since I lived in New Jersey, I get ads for these bars. I don't know if they're local or if they're in New Jersey, but I don't know if I can find it now. But it's like this. It's members of a bunch of other bands that we've all heard of, but they just do all John Prine covers.
That'd be a fun band to see and be in.
How was it?
It was good.
Good.
Man, you missed a great show.
I know.
We got our producer back for the
right.
final stretch.
We got Captain Beefheart back for the end of the show.
Say hey to the show, Percy.
Hey, Percy, show them how much you love me. Percy. People always ask me about you and the cats. Oh, we were talking about farm animals and stuff, a week or two ago. A guy at work, he has a pig that's getting ready to give birth. I don't know. The last pig had 14 pigs or something. And he was telling us about it. I was like, oh, we should bring one of the pigs on the show,
Oh, man.
Because we were talking about animals. And one of the ladies at work said, they've got cats and dogs. You can't take a pig there. I was like, what? All of a sudden, the stars of the show, like, we can't have guest songs. They have cats and dogs.
We can make special arrangements. That was always my favorite segments on the Carson show, when he had the guy on that brought the wild animals. Just a little element of like, you don't know what's going to happen now.
Well, the same guy, he had a baby goat that the mother died giving birth. So like the first, probably 4 months I worked there.
It imprinted on him.
He brought the goat to work every day, and it wore like a diaper. And like people would be coming in to pay
It wore a diaper.
And people would be coming in to pay their insurance bill. And there'd be like a goat running up and down the hallway. I mean, but then it was eating some papers and did some stuff it really shouldn't have done.
Important documents were disappearing.
Has
Has anyone seen the Majeski file?
but I was like, first started there, I was like, man, you got a damn goat walking around in here. And his office, didn't have the best smell.
I reckon it didn't.
It's not a goat with a diaper.
Right.
That's different.
It's next level.
Yeah, it's taking it to another level. What have you been doing? Well, I had to go change the goat's diaper.
Which of your friends had the pet squirrel for a little while? Do you remember that? It's part of a childhood memory.
Pet squirrel.
It was either injured as a baby or something, so it sort of imprinted on them. We nursed it back to health, and it was like a...
I don't recall that.
God, the squirrels
Rick or Steve,
The squirrels
maybe?
at the park, they'd come right up to you. If you have any food at all, they'll just come, sit on your feet. And they don't have any fear at
I
all.
wrote a story about that. Well, no, I didn't write a story. This is what I think we should do. We should create a phenomenon in Stanton. Nobody watches the show, so we're safe to talk.
Right. Yeah.
But the squirrels in Gypsy Hill Park are starting to attack people.
Mm.
They're starting to come after you.
They really do.
They'll go
come up to you.
right up your leg.
Yeah, they will.
Whoa.
And they look right in your pocket.
Yeah.
Not cool.
Because there's this old man that walks around and he has peanuts in his pocket, and he takes them out and he feeds them. So now the squirrels are checking you out, and some of them are getting very irritable if you don't have anything, and you're exactly right. And if we could start that, we could have probably all the squirrels in the park killed by the end of the week.
Wait, what? That's the plan?
No, I don't want to do that, but I'm just saying we have that much power.
Okay, so what's the plan? What are we doing?
Well, we'll have to just start spreading it around,
Oh, telling people that.
telling people that. This
I thought we were going to go
no,
start taking walks with peanuts in our pockets and
No, you don't have to. It's already been done.
My mom does that. She throws peanuts to them. She has a
There,
huge
there
bag of
are.
peanuts
I
at
have
home.
watched them. These old fellas. A lot of them are younger than
shouldn't
me,
call my mom
but
an
they're
old
old men, and they come and they get out of their car and they have a bag, and they start walking around, and the squirrels come running and they feed them. They walk all the way around the park. Well, a friend of mine was taking a walk in the park last week, and she said exactly the same thing you just said. That squirrel came up and he came right up to her
Right.
foot, and was saying, "Where are my peanuts?"
oh my goodness.
And I've had them come up to me.
It's like the stories of these
But it was-
monkeys that started out being tourist attractions, but now they're getting full of themselves, and they're like, they'll steal your puppy or
Well, and we're close. I mean, the reason I got the idea was hippos.
yeah,
Go
yeah,
back
just
a couple episodes. but think about it. All you have to do is this. Did you hear about the attack over at the park? Did you hear about it? I swear, it was a friend of my, Jimmy.
Right.
Jimmy's wife's sister was in the park the other day, and she got bit by a squirrel. Got right on the finger.
that's so crazy that you say that, because a good friend of ours just got attacked by a squirrel over downtown.
Downtown?
It happened downtown.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you think is going on? Do you think it's all the squirrels in Stanton, or just the ones in the park? And But-
Somebody told me Nathan Moore was performing down there, and he went to talk to the crowd, turned around, and his guitar was being drug away by a couple of squirrels.
that's what I heard. I heard they were. I heard they. Now you're just joking. I heard they bit his string. He was singing about the squirrels,
Yep.
and he
That's
went back
right.
there, and they were chewing your string. That's what I heard.
We got to get Earl the Squirrel
Well-
in on the line here to
I mean,
advise us.
Being funny, but this is actually a true story. My dad used to play golf up at the Gypsy Hill Park, and he had his golf bag sitting out front, and he had like some snacks in it in a zippered bag. And somebody came in the golf shop and said, "Whose bag is that out there?" And he said, "Mine." He goes, "He said, well, the squirrels would chew through and are taking all your snacks. They had chewed through the leather bag and were like taking his snacks out of the bag in like 5 minutes. They didn't. They just saw he's not looking. They dashed up there and got all his stuff."
But really, they are a little bit scary.
Yeah, that's scary.
They don't want to take no for an answer.
Well, it'll take me forever to find it, but a couple months ago I went to the park to feed them, and there was like one squirrel, and I threw some food. And I mean, they came from.
What'd you
everywhere.
throw? What'd you take?
I had some old dog treats, and I just threw it, and like one squirrel came, then two, and then I turned around like, oh, that was nice, and they were coming from everywhere, and I'm like, oh my god, and I'm like running, filming them. They're like behind me, like there was probably like 10 squirrels, like
Chasing
following
them,
me. And I
screaming
was.
through the
I mean,
park.
I don't think that I'm sure they weren't trying to hurt me, but it is scary because you turn around, they're right behind you, and you're like, oh my god, you don't know what they're gonna do, or you don't want to step on them.
Man, this is all a little heartbreaking to me, because one of my favorite childhood memories is Mr. Marshall, who was the old man in the house next door to me growing up. He used to feed squirrels out of his hand on his porch. And as a child, he was like Dr. Doolittle to me. I was like, oh my God, this guy is magic. And it's always sort of like warmed my heart and made me feel, and I always wanted to develop that relationship with a squirrel myself, so I could inspire some child, one of my neighbors, that might like, oh, he used to feed squirrels from the pond. I haven't developed that. In fact, I'm so mad at all the squirrels that live around us. I think that dream is sort of dead, but it's always been a nice, happy place in my mind, and now that's forever changed.
I've killed it for you.
Now I just see a whole pack of them chasing you through the park with blood in their eyes.
I would not be a bit surprised if I've been joking on. But I bet there are people out there that have been attacked by squirrels at the park, because they don't. I mean, if they get it in their head that like if you had a bag, and they assume, they jump to conclusions, they'll get pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
They really, you talk about squirrel. I always thought squirrels were nice, but they can be some badasses.
They're not. They're like just glorified rats.
Sharp teeth,
Mm-hmm.
sharper, and but you give them an attitude, they come with an attitude. I can't imagine a rabbit ever attacking you.
Right.
But I can see a squirrel just coming right on in, running right up your leg, taking a nip, and running down.
Right. Yeah, if we could just do the same thing with rabbits, that would be a way better world.
And the only one way to handle it, because I'm an American, and I guess y'all know.
Shoot them?
I'm going to go shoot the motherfucker. I'm going to take a gun down there tomorrow and shoot about 5.
I'll meet you down there. What about noon?
Well, you bring your shotgun.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll shoot a couple, and we'll nail them to the tree.
Oh my God.
There's a warning to the
by
rest
their
of them.
tail, and we'll solve
We'll
that
solve
problem.
this problem.
Yeah.
They'll call us in. Who you gonna call? Squirrel Busters.
Well, they used to pay Brian Demery to get all his camouflage.
Oh, right. He had that business.
Lay down by the pond and shoot
He was like
rats.
Bill Murray in
Yeah.
Caddyshack for
He
a
would
living.
He would shoot rats at night down there at the park.
He shot him?
Yeah, he was allowed to go down there. I don't
He
know
had
if
a special permit.
Yeah.
He would be a good special guest on the show to ask about
Well,
that
I
venture.
bet he would have a lot of data. I bet he's had to deal with squirrels. before.
Absolutely.
But talk about stuff that scares.
Squirrel,
scary
rat,
stuff.
squirrel.
Big difference.
You mentioned last time. You mentioned Peter Pan, and then you said that you used to listen to an album he had that scared you to death.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew the Peter Pan story, but I started doing some research, like what was it about and how it's been totally turned into a kid's thing. The original Peter Pan was written because the author's J.M. Barrie or whatever, his brother died when he was young, so he never got old. So in the original Peter Pan this is what I read, Peter Pan kills the kids so they never get old.
Oh, right.
And I was like, man, is that for real? Because
He would lure them. He's like the Pied
Yeah.
Piper,
So,
sort of.
but I went and bought a book.
Are you kidding me?
Yes,
Peter
sir.
Pan, Pied Piper.
So
Boy,
I went and bought a book. I
Unbelievable.
bought a used book at No New Books, and it's totally sanitized now. It's very sweet and stuff. I was like, where do you find the original one where he was like, but he was doing it out of the kindness of his heart. He didn't want anybody to get old and suffer, so he would kill them when they were young. And I was like,
the J.M. Barrie original
Yeah.
was like that?
that's what I can't find an original copy of it. The one I bought, and you can fly through it, like 2 hours or whatever. But
It's like the King James version of
Yeah,
the Bible
but
or something
but
that's
at
been
the
edited.
end, even in the one I bought at the end, he has a knife and he's crying and he's sitting by his mother and the little kids are asking him, "Why are you crying?" And he was gonna kill his mother because she was old. It's like, but they've sanitized it or I don't know if that's a Disney movie or whatever it is, but it's like they've turned it. I mean, it's still
That's
a great
fascinating.
story, but they just taken out. And but when I was doing all this reading about it online, they were talking about Cinderella, and like
Oh, don't ruin her, too.
Right.
You ruined
Yeah,
squirrels.
but it is.
and
This
Peter
is the
Pan.
special Eva's birthday show too.
And-
So
Yeah,
maybe we
this-
should pick this up next
well,
week
well,
because
this-
I'd be happy to talk about where I think you're going with
Well,
this.
I'll leave out some of the gruesome part, but in the original Cinderella, it's not a glass slipper; it's a rabbit fur slipper. But that didn't have the charm of a glass slipper.
There's a lot of edits made to Cinderella. Tune in next week on Jabberjawn and find out more about that.
I don't want to hear. I'm being
It's
destroyed.
fascinating. Like most of our fairy tales, all the Disney stuff has been very sanitized compared to where it came from. But that's that might be a good place to pick up next week because we are out of time here, unfortunately or fortunately. But we can continue this conversation off air too because it is very interesting.
All right, Margie, get those cards ready. You can show me how to play poker.
You know what I was
Let's play
doing
some
this
poker.
I did this
You can show me how to
afternoon.
play
is
strip poker.
I read those zines.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know what y'all were talking about, and I found them in my pocket last week, and I got them. They're fascinating.
Isn't it?
They really, that library got serious, didn't it?
Oh.
Each one's a little rabbit hole.
Yeah,
It's very cool.
I read some of them were very interesting. The one about that squirrel killer. He killed every squirrel in New Jersey.
The Trenton tree
The
squirrel.
Trenton, yeah, the Trenton
Squirrel
squirrel
killer, not tree
killer.
killer.
Ooh,
They weren't tree squirrels or flying squirrels, were they?
oh no.
That was just a misspeak.
Flying squirrels are still cute.
Yeah,
They're
I was
big
gonna say.
black lines. We only kill grays. We don't even kill fox squirrels.
I remember
No, fox squirrels. Are
one of
cool.
the most. I've never seen women be more horrified looking. And I used to work with in a department in Richmond. It was like me and I think it was like 6 or 7 women. And the Richmond Braves had just become the Richmond Flying Squirrels.
Oh wow.
And they brought this mascot in, which was a guy that came in. He had like some wings, but he had on tights, and you could see like every vein in his package. It was one of the most. I was like, "Whoa, this is not a flying squirrel." And the women were, all like, "Oh my God, get this damn mascot out of here!" And he's standing there with his little squirrel face on and his little
Oh my
wig.
God.
And I was like, "Oh my God, dude, you need to be like the goat and put a diaper on." This is like one of the. They were all like, "Oh, get it! Don't come to my cube. Go away. Nobody wants to see."
Just when I thought we were going to end on a nice, cute note, because flying squirrels are just one of the most amazing, cute creatures on this planet.
No longer.
Yeah,
You ruined it for
yeah,
us.
that's
Thank you,
okay.
Kyle.
That's okay. I'll be fine. Love you all. Thanks for
right. Thanks for
watching.
watching.
See you
Have a
next
good-
week. Jabber
Have a
Jawn.
good night and stay out of the park. Too many people around.